Okay. So the first couple of questions are about measures that happened in the past and what your position has been on them. And so did you support the expansion of Sound Transit?
Yes.
Okay.
And
did you support the parks levy?
yes.
Okay.
And Pike Place Market levy?
Yes. And then the first question is more of an open-ended answer, and it's regarding the head tax.
Right.
So, as you know, people that are in support of the head tax and keeping it say, we need funding for
Sidewalks.
bicycle infrastructure,
Right.
that kind of thing, and it's not as much of a nuisance to businesses. Of course, they're saying the opposite, and so we just wanted to get your rundown on whether or not you support the repeal.
Right, well, it looks like the repeal is going to happen. I think that's a election year decision. But the real question for me is how do we make up this $5 million gap? Because that's what it was designed to do, was to provide revenue so that we could do these complete streets and do the sidewalks. So the question for me would be, okay, if we withdraw that from business, then what are we going to do? Because the sidewalks and our pedestrian master plan are such an important source for us. I mean, it's what we want our city to look like. So the next question is, okay, if that's going to be withdrawn, then how do we find additional money, either from transportation or other sources, to replace that?
Mm-hmm. And do you have any specific ideas for different revenue sources, or maybe reallocation?
Right, I think the reallocation is going to have to be out of transportation money. That pedestrian walkways are part of our our transportation plan, and we really have to look at it more as what are we going to do for the community, not just for roads. And REAP money and others can be used for that when there's crosswalks and connections, and I think that's what the source we would have to look for.
Okay. So if you were looking at the whole, the transportation budget as a pie, and you're thinking about all the different modes, such as transit, pedestrian, and bike, and vehicles, and what kind of percentages would you want to see as far as our prioritization?
Do you know, that is a question that I haven't looked into, what the percentages would be. Can we talk about that a little bit and see if we can back into it? So what do we have for the percentage breakdown right now?
Well, right now, for instance, the pedestrian master plan, I think as far as actually funding the plan, we're looking at maybe we're actually paying 1% of what the plan might actually be. When you look at...
I'm going to draw our pie here.
Okay. So if you have the $5 million that was from the head tax, just and I don't have the exact specific percentage because it's a really complex question, but if you think about that $5 million from the head tax, the PED plan was going to get about $10 million per year. And
the other resource was coming from?
For pedestrians?
Right.
So it was all from Bridging the Gap. The $10 million each year was from Bridging the Gap. So outside of those funds, you have things like, sidewalk program and neighborhood street fund, things like that. But those...
But really that's what we're limited to right now, right?
Right. So if you look, maybe let's say that there's $20 million directly spent on things that are labeled pedestrian. Then there's other things that are, I would say, that have pedestrian benefit within them, and we can't really exactly parse those things out. But you have about $330 million that is the SDOT budget. So you have a certain amount that's for bicycles in there. And so you have basically for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure a much smaller percentage of the overall thing.
Right, and I guess I was just asking what that percentage is because I don't know.
Okay, and I don't know either, but I know that $17 million for 2010 is roughly 5% of the whole budget.
Okay.
So those are things that are really specifically pedestrian.
Right.
And outside of that, you have things like, paving projects, and we have complete streets now, so there's all kinds of things that benefit pedestrians.
Right.
So it is.
But right now you're saying it's 5%. 5% of the total is about all that's being directed to pedestrians right now. Well, that does seem like a shame, and an awfully small percentage. Particularly when we keep talking about walkable, sustainable, livable Seattle. We need to increase that so people actually can get around, feel safe. I'd love to see a long-term plan of separated bike lanes as well. And obviously not every street is going to have the separated bike lane, but like what New York City has done now, I'm very impressed with. They took one north-south city street, and they took one lane and they actually put bollards down the lane, which meant one side was either had to be parking that was removed or a lane was removed. But as a result, now bicycles feel safe to ride north and south, and that is what we really need to be doing if we're going to get people out of cars and provide access. So I would look at longer term. How do we make the complete streets a reality? How do we have dedicated bike lanes and these pedestrians, and then we're going to have to apply more money to it in order to make it work.
Okay. And do you support expanding the streetcar network?
Yes.